on the clock. Pecan, 2 seconds. Pecan for the lead. Got it! He got the record at the buzzer! The bridge breaks for three. Buried! Gallagher pulls up. Gallagher rims it out the field. Slams it down. Cooley up ahead. Dombrowski, the freshman, off the window and one. Go back to Evans, corner three, got it! There's Rowe with the exclamation point! As Dunny slams it down! Far side, Dawson unloads, knocks it home, Jenna Dawson! Goodbye Teslovich, Epps puts it on the floor. Bryce looks to drive in, Epps floats it up, got it! He got it! There's 1,000 for Bryce Epps!
Another day, another episode of the Valley Sports Guys podcast here at His Place Coffee Community and more in Monessen. Mon Valley Independent Assistant Sports Editor Jose Negron, joined by the returning Jeremy Salou and Alex Lyons.
He's alive.
He is alive. He is here,
alive.
and he has a lot to say.
I might not be able to say
I
it
might need
well.
to translate it, and by translate it, I mean I won't translate it. I'll have somebody off the street translate it.
I apologize for the voice. The voice is still slowly returning, but yes, I am back. So.
Good to have you back.
Thanks.
We know you have a lot to discuss. We have a lot to talk about. The week of basketball, we've had some big college commitments that we want to kind of bring up and talk about. But we'll first start with kind of recapping the night that was last night in basketball action. A couple of boys and girls matchups in the Mon Valley. We'll start with the head story of today's Mon Valley Independent. Sarah Catholic, GCC going head-to-head in a section showdown. First place, Greensburg Central Catholic. Second place, Sarah Catholic. And GCC kind of ran away with it early on. Sarah came back, rallied back. You know, they're called the comeback kids for a reason, Alex. They've made some big, valiant comebacks this season. One in particular against Jeanette, I believe, in their previous game. Or before the Aquinas Academy game that they were able to come back against Jeanette from a lopsided first half deficit. They tried to do it. They were down, I think, 2 points in the third quarter. Then GCC goes on another run. It was just kind of back and forth after GCC was able to take, I think, as many as an 18-point lead in the first half. But Sarah just couldn't quite get there. 5 players in double figures, very impressive offensive showing for the Eagles in a 83-73 loss in Section 3-2A, but GCC was just too much.
Yeah, and the difference was Franco Alvarez. There's no question about it. I mean, Tyree Turner, you know what Tyree Turner's going to do. He's a phenomenal basketball player, but they couldn't touch the 6'5 junior and Franco Alvarez underneath. He was a walking bucket, over 20 points for Franco, 23 for him, 24 for Tyree Turner, and they had no chance. They couldn't cover him underneath, and that was very costly for Sarah Catholic. And I think, I'm not one to poke the bear with the officials too much, but free throws 18-5.
Yeah.
Sarah Catholic only shot free throws in the second quarter. GCC, I think, had 3 total fouls in the entire second half, and there was some frustration, and we saw them out. And Joey DeMoss is probably one of the more level-headed kids you ever see. He got a forearm pushing him out of bounds, and
almost ripped his jersey.
Yeah, almost went to, and he was called out of bounds.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't do that. You can't have that, especially. That's what, at that point, I think Sarah got themselves back within 7 in the fourth quarter. And, it's you got to be able to find a way. And I'm okay if there's a foul difference, especially if one team is fouling. But watching that, there's no way it should have been about a 13 foul difference. And, again, Sarah Catholic only got to the line in the second quarter. Did that cost them? No. Again, they just were unable to kind of contain Franco Alvarez, who kept losing coverage too. It wasn't that he was just outworking Sarah Catholic and just being a bigger body. He would easily find himself with no one within 5 feet of him.
Right.
Just easy bucket every time for Alvarez.
And Sarah doesn't have a ton of size in general to, compete with something like that. And then you have Tyree Turner, who just is so smooth with what he does, and he just makes it look so easy. Whether he's going inside, whether he's shooting threes, from the free throw line, he was pretty much perfect. I don't know if he even missed a free throw last night.
I don't think he did.
And then you have balance there with Samir Crosby with 14 points, Jaden Canaday with 12 points. And just, I don't know, it's just Sarah feels like, they're scoring in bunches. They had 5 in double figures last night, led by Owen Dombrowski, who had 19. Pete Burke was huge off the bench with 15. You had 13, Joey DeMoss had 16. You had Burke with 15, Isaiah Petty with 13, Elijah Ward with 10. So a ton of balance offensively, but it seems like with this Sarah team, it's just the defense is they've kind of had issues with so far.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, if Sarah Catholic can get out with the steals to scores, that's when their defense is best, when they're preventing opportunities. But multiple times we saw GCC set up in the zone for 30-plus seconds, work the ball around, work for the perfect shot. And the thing is, they didn't have many empty trips down the floor besides, and it's not that you looked at, say, okay, Sarah Catholic lost by, a pretty decent margin in the end of things, but in my opinion, I don't know, you could disagree. Besides 2 3-minute stretches in that game, Sarah Catholic outplayed GCC.
Yeah, you have that huge. I think it was it ended up being a 14 or 15-0 run from the end of the first quarter to the beginning of the second quarter. I think that made an 18-point game at one point.
Yes, it was 28-10.
Right, and then Sarah, every time they would kind of rally back, GCC would just always have an answer.
It was after Joey's layup got him within 2, and it was. At minimum, it was 8 straight, but then I think after 8 straight, it was trading.
I think 30. It was like a 10-3 run at the end of the third quarter that gave them a 10-point lead again. Like it was, I think GCC might have had 2 or 3 different 10-point leads in that third quarter.
Yeah, and
because as quickly as Sarah would come back, GCC would answer.
And there's those 2 3-minute stretches. If you don't have those, if you're Sarah Catholic, you're all right.
Yeah.
And you probably have a chance of winning this game, but you gave up 2 huge runs, and that's what cost you.
Yeah, and AJ Corso even said, well, as of late, we just haven't been able to get out to good starts. And it was, again, the case last night when they were, I think, down by 11 at the end of the first quarter at 21-10. It was, I think, 13-10 at one point, and then a 7-0 run within the last, 2 minutes for GCC that allowed them to gain separation. And they continued on in the second quarter. But, yeah, it just, obviously another valiant effort by Sarah. There's no question. But it seems like they haven't put a full game together. Once they do that, they could be a very dangerous team. I mean, how good they could be offensively, especially from beyond the arc. They had to rely on the 3-ball a lot to get back into that game. And for the most part, we're successful with it. So a tough loss for Sarah. They now fall to 8-8 overall, 5-3 in section play. Meanwhile, GCC is, I believe, still perfect in section play.
No, one loss. Riverview.
7-1, right? Are they 7-1 in section?
7-1 now. Yep.
So yeah, I mean it's a tough loss for Sarah, but they're still in a good spot in the section standings, which is good news for them. So. But also we had a local matchup between a pair of local teams with Monessen and Fraser. Jeremy, you were there at Monessen High School for that one. And Madison Johnson really led the way for the Greyhounds as a freshman.
Yeah, I think watching them at the Shootout Classic and then watching them again, you could just see the steps she's taking every game, turning into the go-to player and the leader for them. And that's a lot for a 14-year-old. But Coach Janine's pretty happy with her progression. She had 19 points, and that's all the Commodores had. So, you get your leading score to match the other team's output, you're in good shape. It was just too much pressure. I think the first 6 or 7 Fraser possessions, they turned the ball over. Can't do that against a Monessen team that, that's their offense. They want to score in transition. I know a lot of the Fraser people were upset that they were still playing. Monessen was still playing man, in the fourth quarter, but that's how they play. That's it's high school. This ain't youth league. This ain't the Metro League. This is, you have to stop teams. And Fraser just had no answer for Monessen's pressure. But looking at Fraser, I'm kind of disappointed. I think they should be better than they are. There's talent there. Mm-hmm. I mean, Delaney Warnick is a monster under the hoop. She's She had 13 points, 9 rebounds, and she was denied the ball a lot in the second half. She played really well. But around her is just a lot of young players, and there was some foul trouble early on, and they paid for it. And you can't go scoreless in a quarter. I mean, that's the other thing. That's 2 games in a row now. I've had teams go scoreless in quarters, and they've been blowouts. So, yeah, but I mean, Monessen, they tuned up, and they're ready for their second half of their season. I know they're eager to get to West Green again. They think they almost had them last time, and they're waiting to get that monkey off their back. That West Green team has been there for a long time in that section. So that's a game they're really looking forward to. But there's no easy games, in this second half of the season. Teams have seen you. Teams have know what you want to do. And that's one thing Coach Janine said about last night is they worked on some things against Frazier that other teams have not seen them do yet. They brought in a new press. They brought in a little bit more I want to say facets of a half-court offense for when they get stuck in a half-court. But other than that, they're still going to pressure you. They're still going to try to score in transition.
Right, and that's, 7 in a row now for the Greyhounds?
7 or 8.
7 or 8, okay.
She posted a tweet about it on Twitter last night.
I mean,
today.
You got to be happy with the way that they're playing right now. They now already have 10 victories on the season at 10-4.
Yep.
Especially, I mean, you mentioned the freshman Maddie Johnson coming in right away and being really an impact player. I mean, that's going to be something that Janine Vertachnik is thrilled with, the fact that, she's going to have this player for the next 4 years, a player that can be really good as a leader for them down the stretch.
Right.
But we'll go and we'll kind of wrap things up with the recap from today's MVI. McKeesport gets back on track with a 64-52 win over Latrobe in Section 3 5A. Rachel Manfredo with 19 points. Maddie Hertzler added 15, and Melina Board with 12. Camille Dominic had a game-high 26 for Latrobe, and Ellie Snyder, a former MVI SBL star, with 10 points for the Wildcats. Clairton, they end their 5-game losing streak behind Ayanna Wade's 36 points, 52-37 win over the Ellis School. Those were the other girls' matchups. On the boys' side, Yock had Tara Crosby and Austin Matthews combined for 46 points. Crosby with 30, Matthews with 16. As Yock beat Greensburg-Salem in non-section action 60-40. Thomas Jefferson, an overtime win over South Fayette. Evan Berger with 25 points. Brody Evans with 11 for TJ ahead of their big section matchup against Peters Township on Friday night. Speaking of that Peters Township team, they beat another local team in Elizabeth Ford 87-71. 20-plus points in each quarter for Peters Township in that victory. Had 5 players reach double figures. Isaiah Turner with 19 points. Zach Boyd with 16. Zach Jones with 10 for the Warriors. West Mifflin a 64-47 win over Ringgold. Lorenzo Glasser and Jake Bahovic with 16 and 15 points in that loss. Clairton a 62-59 winner over Riverview. Caden Smith with 22 points, Devin Dean with 14. Wash High, 76-34 over Charleroi. Lone player leading the way for Charleroi was Bryce Large with 8 points. Fort Cherry, 77-38 over Bentworth. Landon Urcho with 15 points. Christian May with 14 for the Bearcats. But a lot of interesting storylines so far here for both boys and girls basketball. We saw Monday night a big South Allegheny boys win over Mars. They rebound from their loss over the weekend to Newcastle. Huge game for Bryce Epps. Once again, he just continues to have a strong season for this SA team. But guys, is this an SA team? I know they had the setback to Newcastle, but they beat a team in Mars that had previously beaten Newcastle. So do we take a lot from that loss to Newcastle, or is this an SA team that's still the trajectory is still up for the Gladiators?
They shouldn't have lost to Newcastle, first off. I mean, that's the thing. They blew a 4-point lead in the first overtime. They had possession of the ball up by 2 points in overtime and threw the ball into the Newcastle bench from the near sideline to the far sideline. Missed a fast break layup with nobody around. And, I think it was a good punch in the face against a very good Newcastle team. Again, they were missing one of their better players in Boyce, but still, that's a talented Newcastle bunch. Went in there, gave them everything they could handle. That's the 6A number 1 right now. Right. And then they went in and took on Mars, and they were without Cameron Epps. Camden Lewis played an incredible game for them off the bench. Rudberg hit a huge three. Michael Mahalski, some of the best defense you're going to see. Stefanos, 26.5 points per game, was 7 less than that. He is a 1,000-point scorer. He's a lethal guy. And then when you have 2 6'5" guys or a 6'6" and a 6'7" guy underneath, that's tough to guard as well. But SA did a phenomenal job. They continued to control the pace of the game they wanted. And, Justin Beatty stepped up in the third quarter in a big way to help out Bryce and Mike, who are dominating the offense through the first 2 frames for South Allegheny. And, when South Allegheny lost to Avonworth last year, they went to that slow-down mentality and let Avonworth come back in. They're so good at cycling around the zone now, in looking for that shot, not waiting for the time. But if that perfect shot comes, they take it. And it looked like they were holding for one against Mars. Epps, with 10 seconds left, said, I have a lane. I'm going for it. Bryce gave his team the lead. And then Black all alone back the other way. And I was sitting around Mars' parents. They were fuming. There was no call on Justin Beatty. Beatty didn't make contact. He busted his butt back, ran right under Black, and Black just missed the layup. Camden Lewis got the rebound, sunk some free throws, and sent them on their way. But South Allegheny, I think, is truly a force to be reckoned with in 4A. And when they play Laurel Highlands, you're going to have a real test of what that team looks like. Because right now, LH, Uniontown, 2 of the top teams, along with Lincoln Park. Well, right now, who's that 4th? Who's joining them? And I think it's South Allegheny at this point.
And I think it's really, their defense creates everything for them. And I feel like, that's what their strength is, and that's going to be their strength against Laurel Highlands. I think that's what's going to make it such a good game is, Rodney Gallagher, Keandre DeShields, those 2 guys are going to be tested against South Allegheny's defense. I think the other guys are going to be tested as well. But this is an SA team that it's interesting how much they're continuing to challenge themselves. You thought that the jump up to 4A was going to be a challenge enough, but now they're playing, teams in higher classifications like Newcastle, like Mars, and they're really challenging themselves during the regular season and non-section play to kind of get themselves prepared for what they're going to see down the stretch in 4A and what they're going to see in the playoffs. Because, we say it all the time, this classification is absolutely loaded, and you need to be ready for when it comes to those big games in the postseason. And I think right now SA is challenging themselves in the right way, and they're going to be ready once it gets down to it.
I agree. That's all I got to say. Right. I think Alex hit the nail on the head. Is last year's Avonworth game is what really kind of sparked them into the team they are because their system cost them. Mm-hmm. And like Alex said, now they're being more patient, but they're still attacking from it when they have the opportunities. And and like you said, Bryce Epps, he's getting a lot for his offensive output, but he's still one of the top defenders in our area. Yeah. And he's showing it.
Yeah, and I think SA is really adapting to the style of team that they have now. The fact that, Deshaun Carter has stepped into a starting role. The fact that, Justin Beatty and Cam Epps are now in full-time starting roles. Those are guys that received a lot of playing time last year, but mainly coming off the bench as kind of role players, getting starts here and there. And then you got, 2 guys in Bryce Epps and Michael Mahalski who, Bryce is taking his game to another level. We didn't think that was possible with just how high of a level he was playing at before, but it seems like right now he's in elite status, and Michael Mahalski has taken his game to a new level over the last year while getting more playing time. So SA is moving in the right direction. They have Avonworth, I think, in their next game. Friday night?
Yeah.
So that'll be another test
next week.
And that Avonworth game last time at home was tough. They're now they're going to have to go to Avonworth for a road matchup. Not going to be an easy atmosphere to play in, but they'll be focused. So, South Allegheny, one of the top teams in our area. Bell Vernon's starting to kind of get going again. What can we say about the Leopards? I mean, they still have 2 tough matchups against Uniontown and LH.
Something's still not right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's and honestly, for me, it's their defense, which is usually their bread and butter. I think they're not playing the type of defense they need to play, especially with the uptick in competition. And it's not just the games they're going to play this weekend or anything like that. It's, they're playing the Laurel Highlandses, who, all know how talented they are. And, Uniontown's a lot like Bell Vernon was the last couple of years. Young, talented, and, they can do everything. So, there's a piece missing that I think the Leopards just have to get together, and they have to figure it out. I'm interested. My little girls' team practices right after them down in the other gym tonight, so I'm going to go in and try to catch the last 20 minutes of practice or so and kind of see if I can, get a feel of what their practice rooms are like. And I know they were missing Coach Salvino, who had tested positive for COVID, so he was out for a while. I don't know if he's back yet or not. So it's going to be interesting. Like this week, it's Bell Vernon and Southmoreland Friday. Southmoreland, I don't know how Bell Vernon's going to perceive that game because they played the tough game this past weekend, and then they're going to play Franklin Regional Saturday.
North Hills
and
Sunday.
then North Hills on Sunday. So 3 games in 3 days. Those last 2 won't be, section games. So how serious are those going to take them? Because you got to start looking now at where you're going to fall in the tournament. Mm-hmm. You don't want to be on that side where, we're figuring Lincoln Park's probably going to be the one. You don't want to be on that side of the bracket. So you got to start paying attention to where you think you might be seated. And you go out there and you beat Franklin Regional, who's pretty highly ranked in 5A. And then you go and beat North Hills. Okay, then we're talking about you being on the right track.
Right.
So,
I don't think Bell Vernon's really in a position to not take those non-section games seriously. I think that every game has to be taken seriously for this team. But it's not an easy path for them. I think you mentioned what's kind of missing and how their defense has kind of struggled, and I think we haven't really seen that up tempo where they get a stop and they get down the court real fast and get easy points in transition. We haven't really seen that a ton. So it's definitely going to be a challenge for BVA moving forward, especially when you look in section play. I mean, the section's so loaded. You have a team like Southmoreland that's still a very good team. That's the fourth best team right now. They're 4th place in the section. Right. And then you even have a team like EF that they still have talent there too. With Isaiah Turner, Zach Boyd, Zach Jones has come up big for them.
Right.
Obviously Drew Cook and Charlie Niggett as well. So.
Well, and the thing is too for Bell Vernon, nothing's lost yet.
Yeah.
I mean, you're still got Uniontown. And you still got Laurel Highlands.
You have LH at home,
right? You could still go out and at least share the section title,
right?
And but if not, you're probably falling to the 3 spot. You're going to go to probably at least a team with a better records, home area for a playoff game. So
probably a mid seed,
right? And like I said, it's going to be real interesting how they do that 4A bracket this year because the teams are just top to bottom, 1 through 12 or 1 through 16, whatever it's going to be loaded.
Yeah, I mean, even those bottom teams are going to be talented.
I mean, look, you have the potential where you might have Lincoln Park as 1, and Bell Vernon might be the 8 or 9.
Yeah,
so you might have Bell Vernon in the second round. If you're Lincoln Park, I know you're Lincoln Park and you're the big baddie on the block, but you might not want to see the Leopards in the second round.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, just in general, looking at 4A, you have a team that I think many people forget about, or 2. You can't forget about Hampton and Highlands in 4A. Right. I mean, everyone talks about, okay, you got Lincoln Park, you got North Catholic's good, and then Uniontown, LH, Bell Vernon, South Allegheny, kind of the only one to worry about right now in Section 4, it seems like, through the first half. But then Highlands and Hampton are 2 great teams scoring 67 and 77 points per game while barely giving up over 50. Those 2 teams have 2 losses each. 1 section loss for Highlands that came to Hampton earlier this year. And, with that game between Highlands and Hamptons was a 73-58 one, so take that as you will when they play again. But, I mean, it will be a good test to see where Bell Vernon would stack up against a team like a Highlands because Highlands already played North Catholic this year, or North Hills, and beat them 69-52. So, again, something to look at, but you can't kind of forget about. I think that's the Section 1's one that gets kind of forgot about. But those top 2 teams are very, very good in Hampton and Highlands, and we've known how good Hampton's been over the last couple of years in WPIAL play in general.
Right. And I think, and this is still nothing taken away from South Allegheny, but South Allegheny goes in as a 1-loss team. They're still probably a 4.
Yeah.
They're maybe a 3. So it's going to be real interesting. I think 4A will be the bracket that the committee really sits down and has to look at and pull some things.
And the thing, you get that 4, that means semifinals, it's Lincoln Park most likely.
Right.
And
Exactly.
I would be shocked if they're not, just because look at section-wise, again, like we're talking, Uniontown, LH, if it's the only way I maybe see them doing it is Uniontown, if they win the section outright, I think SA would get above Uniontown possibly, but if it's LH up top, it's just one of those things. How are you going to play it?
I think it's more, I see Uniontown as being for sure a top 3 seed.
But again, if they lose to LH, then you're looking
Right,
at.
but I'm saying if they win out and they go unbeaten in this section,
I think the winner of this section gets seeded higher than the winner of SA section.
yeah.
I think the only way, but if you get a split there, that's when it throws especially if Bell Vernon
Right.
kind of shakes up things inside that section. It's a loaded section, and again, then you're going to have teams like North Catholic, Bell Vernon, Lincoln Park, LH or Uniontown, one of those two teams, Highlands, all possibly getting first-round matchups, and you're losing some really good teams really early on in the 4A bracket.
Yeah, I know that there's a lot to play, but I'm not. If I'm a 4A team, I don't want to play Uniontown in the playoffs.
I don't want to play any of these teams.
I don't
really.
want to play any of these teams either.
Listen,
but,
in all honesty, look at Hampton, Highlands, Lincoln Park, North Catholic, Uniontown, LH, Bell Vernon, South Allegheny. However many teams that they all have a chance to make a run in the playoffs.
Just the thing that's so impressive about Uniontown is they're the highest scoring team in 4A at 77.4 points per game, and then their defense is just as good. They're allowing 42 points per game against teams like LH, Bell Vernon, Southmoreland, even a team like EF. It's.
I have one concern about them though.
Who's that?
Uniontown.
And it's experience.
Well, I was just going to say the lack of experience,
and
maybe.
Don't get me wrong. We've seen how much Grooms and Calvin have grown up this year.
Yeah.
From freshman to sophomore, but now all this pressure into the playoffs. I mean, are you going to be ready to go? And I think that overtime game versus Laurel Highlands is a huge help.
And you look at the Bell Vernon game, too. That was a playoff atmosphere.
It was.
And they had to battle adversity in that game where Bell Vernon kind of, marched out to a rally there in the second half, and Uniontown still just didn't budge. It was just – they really impressed me that night. And I knew that this was – we always talked about, all right, this section, Laurel Highlands, Bell Vernon. But I would always say, all right, don't sleep on Uniontown. Uniontown's still going to be a really good team. Did I expect them to be undefeated right now and to, beat Laurel Highlands and Bell Vernon? Probably not. Maybe split between one of those two teams.
I expected them to be better than LH, but I expected Bell Vernon to be better than they were this year.
Right. And I think that Uniontown's proved a lot of people wrong, and they've really impressed me. So I have to give them a lot of credit for what I've seen from them because they've been so good. So
those kids love basketball too, which is the best part because, here's the thing. I saw them at Gateway. Mm-hmm. I saw them at Chatham. Those kids are just absolutely living and breathing basketball. If they're not playing, they're not at practice, they're at a big game somewhere along the lines.
And it's why they're first place in the section. I mean, teams that are dedicated like that, they reap the benefits and the rewards for that passion and that love for the game. So, do you want to talk a little bit about the Monessen Greyhounds? I mean, guys, they're kind of rolling right now. I know they're probably not playing their best basketball. I know, in games that they have, had some struggles. That game against Brownsville the other night was not an easy game. Came down to the final seconds. But 15 wins in a row for Monessen. I think second straight year that they've won 15 straight.
It was 16 last year. Got up.
I think 16, including their playoff win last year.
Yes, and it went to 16, then it broke against GCC.
Right. So, they're on pace right now to continue this. I know they have a big game against Geibel. They're 15-1 overall, 5-0 in section. They travel to Geibel Catholic, I believe, Friday night for that big section matchup. And then, of course, they round out the season with Jeff Morgan, West Green, Mapletown, California. And then they travel to Wash High for a big matchup February 11th in non-section play. That should be a pretty good game on the road before the playoffs. I think they've played Wash High. I feel like the last game of the season.
They played in the last few years. I don't know if it was the last game of the season. They always seem to.
Last year was
play
Sarah.
them every year.
Last game of the season. Okay, because I do remember that them playing them the last couple of years, and obviously that's a big test with Wash High being atop their section, undefeated at 8-0 in section play, 13-2 overall. So that's a big test. But this is a Monessen team that have won 15 in a row, and Coach Bosnick said the other night against Brownsville they stole one. They didn't play their best basketball. Lorenzo Gardner hits 2 free throws with 11 seconds to go. Got to make the difference in that 2-point victory, 45-43 over Brownsville in non-section play. But they're not maybe playing the basketball they want to play, but they're getting the job done. That's all that matters, right?
Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, you're finding ways to win. That means you're battle tested. When it comes down to have you played in close games or have you not? And a lot of times that is the problem for some of these teams that aren't in high competitive sections. I mean, are you playing in games that have challenged you, and do you know how to handle adversity when it hits you?
Right. You look at some of their wins this season in non-section play in particular, 61-60 over Carmichael's, 55-53 over Burrell, 48-47 over Yock, 63-61 over South Park. They had a 60-49 win over Propel Braddock Hills, but I feel like that was that was closer than the score actually indicates. But yeah, I mean they've played in some tough games, and I mean this is a Monessen team that's always they're used to playing in those big games. So I mean, not really surprising that they're on the streak that they're on, regardless of how they've played in those games.
Yeah, I think for them the key is going to be is just can they sustain it in those close games. I mean, the close games are going to come in handy once you get to the playoffs because they're another team that's looking at, very similar to South Allegheny. You're going to probably win that conference, but I don't think that conference has a lot of respect. It's like the Tri-County South of the basketball conference. So you're looking at probably Union or Amani Christian is the one. Then you got the Cagini kid up at Aquinas. They're a second-place team. So you're probably looking at, if you win that section, you're probably looking at, a 4 seed or a 3 seed. So, but, I mean, I think the thing is that the way they play defense is going to be key, and as long as they keep getting the I don't know what the word I'm looking for here. The supporting cast around Lorenzo Gardner is going to be key. Jay Sean Blackman has been unbelievable this year. I mean, the big guy got foot skills. He got touch. He'll shoot outside. They as long as that supporting cast keeps coming up big. And Lorenzo hasn't even been starting. He's been coming off the bench first 2
He started against
minutes.
Brownsville, but some of the other games he hasn't started.
So he, and Coach Bosnick said, we really like the rotation we have it and the way it's set up. So we'll see, if they just can sustain it and win these close games because, when they went to Jefferson Morgan, it was a tough game. They almost lost that game. Geibel is never an easy place to play. So that Geibel team is the highest scoring team in the section by far. I mean, they're 13 points a game better than Monessen, but Monessen's 16 points better defensively. So we'll see what happens when they play that matchup Friday night. I know our buddy JG up at the Courier is going to have that coverage for us of that game. So I'm excited to see what happens and, if Monessen can win the section outright.
Definitely going to be a tough test moving forward. Like I said, they were tested against Brownsville, which Brownsville is still a very tough team. I mean, I know they've gone through, I think, a 5-game losing streak here, but they played in some tough games. They've had some starters out. But Rob Ramsey's doing a really good job over there at Brownsville. It's great to catch up with him on Monday night and see him and his guys playing a tough game against Monessen. We'll touch on a couple of girls' teams here real quick before we kind of move on to some other local things. I do want to mention that in Section 1 6A, Norwin, Go Knights, 14-2 overall, 5-0, unbeaten. Just want to throw that out there. But 2 of the top teams in the Mon Valley, McKeesport, 2 straight losses to Oakland Catholic in section play, who is now unbeaten in section, atop the section standings at 8-0. And then they have a non-section loss to South Fayette. They bounce back, like we said earlier, with a win over Latrobe. They're now 13-3 overall, 6-1 in section play. Is McKeesport still one of the top teams in 5A right now? I mean, I think Oakland Catholic still, proved that, hey, it's not just, South Fayette here. It's not just North Catholic, or not North Catholic, sorry. It's not just, a team like Mars, a team like Indiana. we're in the mix as well. They proved that against, getting that win against McKeesport, but McKeesport's still a ton of talent, still a ton of young talent. They have to be in the mix still, right?
I think they are, and I think they're still one of the top 3 teams probably in 5A. Obviously, you have Oakland Catholic, you have South Fayette, but I'd put McKeesport next. I mean, McKeesport really reminds me a lot of the Bell Vernon boys team. They're deep, they're talented, but I think there's something just on the defensive end that something's not clicking. Mm-hmm. They got back on the winning track against Latrobe, which Latrobe, I give them credit. After losing Blair, people count them out, and they're right back in the playoff spot now. They didn't get some help because Albert Gallatin beat, I think it was Penn Trafford last night. So Albert Gallatin pulled it into a tie with them. But I think McKeesport's going to be right there. If they get the defense figured out, I think they're going to be fine. Once you get into the playoffs, you're going to see, Indiana's a good team. They got some really good size. But, Mars is a decent team. But I think when it comes down to it at the end, you're going to see South Fayette, Oakland Catholic, and McKeesport. Depending on how the brackets come out, those will be 3 of the 4 top teams, I think.
And I think we saw it last year, too, with McKeesport. I think they had 2 or 3 straight losses in the middle of the season and then just rattled on and just went on a run. And you don't want to, we always talk to coaches, and they always say you don't want to peak at the wrong time. You know what I mean? You want to be peaking at the right time going into the postseason. That's what McKeesport was able to do this year. That's what they're going to try and look to do or that's what they were able to do last year. That's what they're going to try to do this year. But that loss for Penn Trafford did help McKeesport a lot. Gives them a little more, leeway, separation with that second spot in the section. But, you look at their remaining schedule. They have obviously their section matchups with Connellsville, AG, TJ, Penn Trafford. They close the regular season at Oakland Catholic. That's going to be a huge game. Then they also go up to Seton Hill University, I believe, this weekend for the shootout at Seton Hill against Greensburg Central Catholic. That's going to be a very challenging non-section game for them. Right. So, this is a McKeesport team that, they had 9 turnovers in the fourth quarter against Oakland Catholic. That really hurt them down the stretch. They were in the game. I think it was a 2-point game with less than 10 seconds to go. They had a turnover. Oakland Catholic was able to convert. They got free throws down the stretch, and it kind of made that win a little more lopsided at 59-51 than it actually was. Played a tough South Fayette team to a 49-40 loss, and South Fayette, they're one of the best teams in 5A as well. Averaging 61.1 points per game, and McKeesport held them to under 50. So, this is still a McKeesport team that has a lot of goals that, they're going to be one of the top playoff contenders. And a lot of motivation, I'm sure, from those 2 straight losses.
Well, and look at it, too. Sorry to harp on it, but your Knights, one of their 2 losses on the years was to McKeesport.
Yeah.
So, McKeesport, they're going to keep playing that top competition. And, they hope to use that as they get into the playoffs, into these games that are – very meaningful. They got a 2-game lead, section type over third place Penn Trafford. In Oakland Catholic that last game, probably the section's on the line there. So still a lot to play for. I think they'll be fine. It's like you said, last year this happened, and then those younger kids started coming on at the end of the year. The Maddie Millers, the Maddie Sharepkos. We all know about the big shot she hit against Trinity. It seems like those girls, finally started to get their footing last year around this time of year, and I think that'll be the case again because they still have a ton of girls scoring every game. Mm-hmm. It's just, you have Manfredo, and, Brooke Evans has been a little bit down this year. I'm sure she's going to bounce back. We saw what she did in the summer. Coming into this year, I think she's going to be fine.
Maybe Menifee is
Menifee has been big, but, and Coach Gumbert said after I went to the last game I was at over there against TJ, she said Brooke's just not in the groove yet, and she's very confident that she's going to get there. And when she does, that's 3 top players that you're going to have to try to defend, and then on top of everybody coming off the bench. Right. So they're not going to be an easy out this year. And also, I'll expect more of those girls in the summer league this year. I think
always doing the scouting.
I think there's some good players there that will benefit, and I think having the team there to watch the championship last year, I think that turns some heads about what our league offers with the top players. So I think we're going to see more McKeesport involvement this year.
And we saw Coach Gumbert at a few games. I think she was at the championship, being able to see Brooke Evans win the title.
The whole team came from the Cal U team camp to support Brooke in that game.
Right. So another top team in the Valley, the Elizabeth Ford Warriors, 13-4 overall, 8-0 in section play. This is a team that's never satisfied. They've won 4 straight. They've won, well, I can't even count that many. They've only had one loss since December 12th. Yep. We'll just say that. And it was a non-section loss to Fox Chapel. They have Southmoreland, I believe, tomorrow night, if I'm
tomorrow
correct.
Night they're at Southmoreland.
So they have Laurel Highlands, Belle Vernon, West Mifflin close out the season at Baldwin. With 4 section games remaining, is this an EF team that can finish 12-0 and win the section title with an unblemished section record?
I'd be surprised if they don't.
Right.
I would too.
I will say that the way Belle Vernon's playing right now makes me wonder what the hell happened in that first game against EF. Mm-hmm. Well, I know what happened. 3 of 28 from three-point range happened. But
and 28 points from Alyssa Terza.
Right, and that game was more kind of an enigma. I think when they meet at Elizabeth Ford, that the small confines, the space kind of helps their pressure as well. I think it'll be closer. I think it'll be a more entertaining game. I'm not going to say Belle Vernon's going to go in there and win.
We thought that last year, too, EF ran away with it.
EF is the better team, overall, I think, top to bottom. But I think, Belle Vernon's going in there, and like Coach Slagus said at the Ringgold game on Monday is, her team has to realize when they go in there, if they take care of business, that game's still for a section title.
Right.
So hopefully with the motivation of something to play for, will help that game. But I think EF, if you don't get a hand in Terza's face, she's going to burn you over and over and over again.
And there's something about her versus Belle Vernon, too.
And it's like the kid that, that keeps going up and, wants to touch the candle. Like, you keep doing it, you're going to get burnt. And, even, when they played Belle Vernon in that 21-point win, Slagus just said, that there was no distance we can go out that was, far enough away because the way Terza shoots the ball. So, obviously everything that EF does revolves around her, but the impact Michelle Jellison has had this year inside, if Terza misses, there's a good chance Jellison's coming down with the rebound.
Right.
Kaylin Settles is that 7 to 10, 11-point scorer that you're getting at every game. Zombeck, she's a streaky shooter. She'll shoot outside. She can play inside. I think Coach Gibbs, she gets them going. Mm-hmm. And, I know some people down there don't like her style, but, man, I would have my daughter play for her any day of the week. Any day.
She's done a phenomenal job. Every year, she talked about you talk about the freshmen on this team, Kaylin Settles, you got, Julia Resnick, Mia Sesterik, Meadow Watton, Addison Niggett. all have really come into this team and have played significant roles for them.
Yeah.
And, it all starts at the middle school level and them kind of being taught how to play Elizabeth Ford basketball, what the expectations are. And they have come in and been instant contributors. And, you're surrounding them with, Alyssa Terza, with Chloe Zombeck, with Michelle Jellison. Jocelyn Dawson has had a really, really solid season. Brianna Dawson has been really good, this year in the minutes that she's played. So it seems like everybody's just doing their job. And they have so much depth and girls that, Coach Gibbs can say, hey, get in there, and she doesn't really have to worry about what they're going to bring to the table. Right. She knows that every single girl that goes in for them is going to contribute. And I think Belle Vernon, for them, EF's not a really experienced team. They made it to the WPIAL semifinals last year. They lost 3 key seniors with Brinson, with Briggs, with Markland. They're not a really experienced team, especially with a ton of freshmen, sophomores, and juniors playing. But Belle Vernon, they've been in these big games. They have such a senior-laden group. You would think that they would use that experience to their advantage.
Well, and that's one of the things I talked about after the Ringgold game Monday, which, that was a blowout. Belle Vernon won 71-24. But, it's a player like Jenna Dawson who I think the last 2 or 3 games she's elevated herself as the leading scorer, leading the way in that category. But it's just been balance, and that's the key. That's always been the key for Belle Vernon. If you get, those 4 or 5 girls, 8 to 10 points, one of them has 15, 16, 17 points, and it's, it's a player like Tessa Rodriguez who does everything. She assists, rebounds, steals. If she get up to that 10-point, it makes them even more formidable. She has all the moves to get to the hoop. She just got to put the ball in the hole.
Yeah.
And she's been getting better at that as the years went on.
She's been taking the ball to the basket. She did it a couple times against Ringgold. She has to take because, a lot of times we've seen it in the summer league. Teams aren't counting on her to take that shot. They don't even guard her to shoot. So she has to take what the defense gives her, especially a team like Elizabeth Ford who know her so well. She might be one of the mismatches they have against Elizabeth Ford. So, because you mentioned, at the point guard you have Dawson, but you also have Resnick, Sesterik, Settles. Rodriguez is way more experienced than those girls. That has to be an area of emphasis where Belle Vernon could take advantage of that matchup, and, get her up to maybe 10, 12 points, and see where that leaves you at the end. So that's one game that I'm looking forward to seeing over the next, I think it's 2 Mondays from now?
Yeah.
So it's going to be real interesting. Obviously, they're both going to be on winning streaks, I think.
Yeah.
Heading in.
Belle
I
Vernon
think
should be at 7, and EF should be at 6.
So I think they both lost on the same day or something. But, ever since then, I'm looking at Belle Vernon, since that loss to EF, hopefully that was the waking up point. They beat South Park by 30. They hung on and beat a good Sarah Catholic team at the shootout. They blew out West Mifflin and they blew out Ringgold. They're going to blow out Uniontown. They're going to blow out Southmoreland. And, Laurel Highlands will probably give them a game for a little bit, but that being on their home floor is going to help.
Yeah.
Laurel Highlands doesn't have the numbers and the depth that Belle Vernon throws at them. So I would expect that would be more than the 15 points they won by up there. And then you're looking at that rematch with the Warriors, and the Warriors are going to be ready for them to come in there.
And I want to talk, too, a little bit about, I think what has gotten EF to this point is the big games, non-section-wise, that they've played in this year, whether they were wins or losses. They have losses to Char Valley, Sarah Catholic, Beaver. I think if they play Sarah Catholic today, it's a different game.
Yep.
I really do. And that's
not
knocking Sarah Catholic.
Loss,
right. Sarah Catholic's a great team, but I think if EF is a much different team than when they played Sarah early in the season. 2 big signature, I think, non-section victories over Trinity and Greensburg Central Catholic, 2 top teams in their respective sections.
Look at EF. You're looking at the schedule that I am. They've had 2 bad blowout losses, Char Valley and Beaver. Mm-hmm. That's it. Everything else has been 10 points or less. Fox Chapel, they lost by 10, but those final minutes when you're shooting free throws and you have to rush shots, that could get up to 10 real quick.
Right.
So I think EF is poised to do what they do every year, make a run, get into the state tournament, maybe surprise a team. Look how tough they played Blackhawk last year. And Blackhawk was miles above everybody else.
2 years ago when they almost upset Beaver.
Yep. that seems to be the MO is they make noise when they get in the tournament. So, and I don't think that this year is going to be any different. Coach Gibbs is going to have them ready.
Yeah. But we'll move on a little bit and talk some commitments. We've had some recent big-time commitments from some Mon Valley football players. Zach Boyd, right before his return to the basketball court, committed to IUP. Bobby Boyd going to Cal. Probably the biggest
number 1 on the depth chart right now.
Biggest
Coach Dunn, make it happen.
For California and Coach Gary Dunn. Getting Bobby Boyd, a ton of really good WPIAL talent that they were able to get.
I think they brought in, 4 or 5 all-state players this year.
They brought in Westinghouse quarterback.
And the receiver.
Yeah. So,
Marcelo and Sincere Smith. They got the big guy on the line from Aliquippa, Nashawn Crowder.
Yep, who was one of the best players in the WPIAL this year. Just such a great recruiting class so far for California, being able to get Bobby Boyd too. He stays in the Mon Valley. And then we have another local player who's going to be making his decision on Friday, Amir Spencer from Sarah Catholic. I know he has an offer from Cal as well, a couple other offers for him.
I was really hoping Zach Boyd would go there because I know that's a need for them, but I could take Spencer.
We could envision Amir Spencer and
Sarah Catholic boys do well down there.
Yeah, Jaquay Jackson, of course, has had a ton of success at Cal. But we'll see where Spencer lands here in the next few days.
I would also say this: don't be surprised if that's a short tenure at Cal U for Bobby Boyd. Year two stepping
Transfer
stone,
portal.
and then he will be somewhere else playing on some big Saturday games.
And I could see him having just a ridiculous freshman year. And then
this is what I wish more kids would do. You get your preferred walk-ons, you get your opportunities from some of these big-name schools, but how much is that going to help you? You're going to go show nothing, prove nothing. Okay, Bobby Boyd's going to go out there, shine. I'd be shocked if he doesn't. And look at guys like Jaquan Brisker, who went to JUCO and now was the Bears Rookie of the Year after 2 years at JUCO, two or 3 years in Happy Valley, then was a pretty high pick for the Chicago Bears. Jair Brown, another guy that went the JUCO route. I mean, there's just guys like this that go the JUCO or the D2 college route, transfer up to a bigger program that probably offered them a preferred walk-on or a low spot on the depth chart.
And look at Edenfield from
to
Cal
Oklahoma
U, went
State.
to Oklahoma State, as a transfer. And
he spent, 2 or 3 seasons at Cal?
Yeah, and you have there hasn't been a program over, say, last 15 years that's put more D2 players in the NFL than Cal U. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm sure that's one of the selling points.
They just had Campbell playing for the Cowboys on
right, and I mean
Sunday or Saturday.
It's not a knock. I mean, we said it about Devin Whitlock. Imagine what he could have done. Who I'm glad to see is back at Pitt, and hopefully on the field next year. But imagine him returning kicks at the D2 level. I mean, it's not a knock on your talent or anything like that, especially with the way COVID's been the last few years, and now the transfer portal. Like half these kids probably won't even be there.
You look at the talent that's at the D2 level. You look at a guy like Eric Harris, who has had a very successful NFL career. Played at Cal. I think he worked at an Utz potato chip company for a while. Finally got his shot with the Raiders. Now he's playing with the Falcons. I mean,
I believe he's going into the Cal Hall of Fame this
year.
He
is, yes. Him and Eric Kush. So, yeah, I mean, it's possible. It's more than possible. We've seen so many talented kids come out of Cal and have successful careers, even if they don't go to the NFL. Right. You look at Gary Brown. He had one of the best careers for a wide receiver in
college football, period.
Yeah, I mean, it was unbelievable, and I think he got a few shots. Paul Butler got a shot, playing for an NFL team. It's possible to go to a D2 school and stay at a D2 school and make it to the NFL, let alone go to a D2 school and then end up transferring and going to a Division I program. So, but yeah, I mean, congratulations to all of our local athletes who have recently committed. Huge get for Cal getting, we know their running game struggled a little bit last year. At times it showed promise, but getting a guy like Bobby Boyd, that's going to be a huge addition. We wish him the best of luck, moving forward. He's only a junior, so he still has another year of high school ball, but still.
Does he?
No.
He's a senior this year.
Is he a senior?
He's a senior.
Are you sure?
He's a senior.
Yep, Bobby's a senior.
Oh. Maybe I'm not.
There's another boy. There's another boy that'll be there this year.
I think he's what? He was going to be
a freshman.
Yeah.
He'll be.
I don't know why I thought Bobby was a junior for a second.
Nope, he's a senior this year.
Well, there you go. He's going to Cal next year, and
we'll see him on media day.
We'll be atop that depth chart. And also, a ton of McKeesport kids have had success at Cal too, which is a big thing for them too.
Clareton kids have been successful there.
Dom Solomon.
Yep.
So, best of luck to Bobby Boyd at the next level. Best of luck to Zach Boyd at the next level. And eager to see what Amir Spencer's decision is on Friday. But anything else local-wise that you guys want to touch on before we move
back
forward?
To the college ranks, I'll give a shout-out to former Bell Vernon coach Aaron Krebs, who's back at W&J as the offensive coordinator. Let's see. Speaking of W&J, their former, I don't know if he was an All-American, but Brian Dawson is now the offensive coordinator at South Allegheny.
Yeah.
I saw that tweet yesterday.
Joining Hanson's staff.
Yeah. So I'm excited. I mean, I know we're already talking about football, but we still got a lot of other stuff before we get there. But yeah, I think.
We have a whole another spring and summer season.
I mean, there's just a lot going on, and D2 signing day is is it Friday or is it the 4th? I think D2 signing day is the 4th. So you never know what will continue to come up for Cal U. So.
Yeah. Do have a couple of big events coming up that we're going to be covering for the MVI. Of course, you got that Bell Vernon football banquet.
Bell Vernon football banquet. Me and Mike Darnay were invited to be there. So we'll put something little together for that weekend. I mean, I might be on Operation Shutdown because it's days before my vacation. Yeah. But, you know, I'm excited to go. I mean, the Bell Vernon football story, you know, it's been, you know, well-versed now. We know what they did this year. But I'm excited to see what Bell Vernon banquets were always up a notch. We know what a planner Coach Humbert is. I can't wait to see what they have planned for, you know, a state and WPIAL championship team. So me and Mike would go there, take some pictures, you know, write some notes, and get to talk to some kids about the experience. You know, just it's interesting how kids, you know, kind of look back on it now. It's been a couple months. You know, the football team's back on the basketball court, but, you know, as kids go and they go to these banquets and stuff and they reflect on what they accomplished.
Kind of realize how huge it is.
Right. Realize what a big deal it is.
In the moment, you definitely don't think about, you know, like, oh, we just won a state championship. Like, that's cool, but, like, in the grand scheme of things, how important is this for not just us, for, like, a community? You know?
Right, for sure. And, hey, it's award season, man. And I would not be surprised if some of our state WPIAL championship coverage from all of our teams, you know, brings home some more hardware for us.
Yeah, fingers crossed. But speaking of big planners and dedicated coaches, that same night I will be heading to the Sarah Catholic baseball reunion, first ever Sarah Catholic baseball reunion.
How often is he doing this? Every year now, or is it
I don't know if it's going to
every
be
couple years?
Every year. This is something that he's thought about for a while because he had this idea of, you know, getting everybody together and you know, being able to celebrate what Sarah Catholic's baseball program has become. I mean, one of the best in the WPIAL. You know, WPIAL and state championship contenders every year. They're defending WPIAL champions in Class 2A. But some of the best players in Sarah baseball history will be on hand at Edgewood Country Club on February 11th. I believe tickets are still on sale. I'm not sure. I haven't checked with Brian on those. Just on, you know, kind of a.
There's not a day that goes by where I don't see 2 posts from him on Facebook. So
he has done a phenomenal job in you know, kind of promoting it. I try to do my best and help promoting it with a story, and you know, kind of try to post it everywhere. And wanted to even mention it here on the podcast for anybody from Sarah Catholic who might be interested in attending. You know. It's going to be a great event. I'm excited. I'm going to be there with Jeff Helsel.
Still trying to get Donnie Hartman to be the MC. I think that would be for Zorenda's
thing.
Because them two have a great rivalry. And
yeah.
They had the rivalry all through baseball when Donnie was at California. And they still communicate. Like, Donnie will tell me, you know, he calls him Dorenzo. You know, he's like, oh, Dorenzo just texted me. And, you know, it's funny because they still go back and forth, you know?
It was fun a couple years ago when Mark Black was our player of the year and then Logan was our player of the year on the girls side. And we had that photo shoot and had, you know, Brian and Donnie down there. But I'm excited to see you know, Bill Cleary, Jim Chester will be the guest speakers. Of course, Bill Cleary helped bring Sarah baseball back in the late 1980s. Jim Chester, you know, a Sarah Catholic graduate, played for Brian Zorenda in his first year as head coach. Now the head coach at Gardner-Webb University. So I'm excited to get to see, you know, Bill Cleary, who's now retired, and a WPIAL Hall of Famer now too. We have to actually mention that. That's a good segue.
Him and Laura
Grimm going in together. Which I talked to Bill Cleary last week for the story that I wrote on the reunion. Wanted to get, you know, some comments from him, and then I called him back later and said, hey, I apologize because I didn't know earlier I was talking to a WPIAL Hall of Famer.
Right.
And he just laughed. He said, you know, I wasn't going to tell you that. Like, he's just that humble that he wouldn't mention it. But I said, and you going in with Grimm, I mean, that's like perfect, right? He's like, how about that?
Yep.
And
that's exactly what he would say.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yep.
Because that was one of his lines. You always knew you were going to get it.
Yeah.
You know, so and so had this play. How about that?
Yep.
You know,
he just you know, 2 more deserving people for those two, and so happy for them and excited to have them. And Bob Oslager from Ringgold is heading to the Hall of Fame as well.
One of the great guys around. the Valley and Valley Sports. That's what I just actually texted Laura Grimm and said, I'll come be your assistant if you come back to be the Ringgold AD. There's the 3 smiley or laughing faces. So, no, it's going to happen. Yeah, but we'll see. That's the other thing. West Psycho going back to Ligonier Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And like he said, he probably wouldn't have went, but Ligonier Valley pursued. They wanted to go back to his tenure and what he did there. So congratulations to him. We still have him until the 13th.
Yeah,
So
and
at least
we have to thank Wes a lot for what he did for us for the MVI Shootout Classic at Ringgold, and was just such a great guy to work with at Ringgold. We wish him nothing but the best moving forward. So.
Other high school stuff. Let's one game I'm going to talk about.
Jeremy's really talkative.
Yeah, we got to wrap this up here soon. But that team
We're
I'm
over an hour.
obsessed
We
with,
really got to wrap it up.
the Charleroi girls basketball team. I'll see them on Thursday
Tomorrow, yeah.
against Waynesburg. The obsession is real. So
yeah.
We'll get into that.
Speaking of that, we'll kind of move into our segments real quick. I have nothing, so I'm going to give it to Jeremy.
I'm
just to
you know
close
what?
it out.
I just got to say, don't be surprised when you come at me if I come back at you. That's all I'm going to say.
That's it.
That's all.
Wow, you really played that as if it was going
We
to
have
be.
to wrap it up.
Yeah,
we
a
ain't got
lot
enough
more.
time in the day.
We'll
yeah.
let Jeremy go off next week.
Next week, Jeremy will.
That might actually kick off the show.
We'll kick off the show next week with some things Jeremy wants to get off his chest. But thank you for all who have tuned in here to episode number 75 of the Valley Sports Guys podcast. Couldn't do it without you. We appreciate the support as always. Be sure to follow us on our personal Twitter accounts. Be sure to follow MVI Live, MVI Sports on social media. But until next time, I'm Jose Negron, Alex Lyons, Jeremy Slew. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Bye.